So, the intention of this conversation today is all around this question of, in a world where we prioritize being busy, filling up our calendars, achievement over anything else, what does it really mean to soften into who you really are? What does it mean to soften into your truest self? And this isn't like a fast answer, but what I can tell you through my own journey is that it does get to be a simple answer. And it gets to be an answer that is very unique to you in however your journey is unfolding for you. And what I'll share today is insight that will support you along the way, that will mirror back to you the strength and the innate wisdom and the courage that you already have within, and to simply draw more of that out. So what does it mean to soften into your truest self? I think that so many of us are in this place in our lives with the events that's been happening and everything that's been going on in the world. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the word because of COVID. I went to a dinner last night, and throughout that conversation, so many of the sentences was because of COVID, that this wasn't able to happen and this wasn't able to happen. And we live in this world now where we're experiencing something that as a human race we haven't really experienced before, where we went through periods of lockdown, we went through periods of not going into school, and the regular things that typically stimulate our lives and that reaffirm the reality that we're living in, we're no longer. It kind of all just went at a certain point, right? And we can take this in two different ways. One, we can go into survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, what happens is we walk around as if life is this big emergency. And one thought snowballs into the next thought, which also absorbs your emotions along with it. And you realize you're not breathing suddenly because you're living from a place of survival. There's also another way that we can experience this. And that way of experiencing it is actually thriving by changing our perspective. So how do we soften into who we truly are? It's in changing our perspective. We have this perspective with everything that's going on that it's putting us in a limiting place. And if you argue for your limitations, then your limitations will always win. But if you can look at the events that are happening and the way that the reality is unfolding, and instead of resisting it, instead of fighting it, instead of being against it, instead of forcing the things that you want to happen, what would it look like if we actually just softened into it? And what does that even mean? Softening into your truest self is an adventure. It's a journey of telling yourself in all the versions inside of you, the 1-year-old version, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, however old you are right now, that it's okay. It's okay. And in just for a moment, giving yourself the opportunity to not see things as they appear to be, but to see things as they are. And the only way that we can really allow ourselves to see things as they are and not as they appear, you know, like all the commentary that we see on social media and on the news, is by actually sitting with ourselves and observing our own mind. And this is where the practice of meditation becomes such a great opportunity, because in this practice, you get to observe the mind that controls the reality that you live in, that controls the reality of this is dangerous, and you live in fight or flight, and you stop breathing the way that you were normally breathing, and you're holding all of your energy in your chest, and it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And then suddenly you feel like your mind is all over the place, and you don't feel grounded and rooted into who you are. And one event comes up that you see on your social media that's happening in the world, and it completely turns into the snowball effect that then becomes something else. And before you realize it, your mind has hijacked you. It's hijacked you of this present moment. It's hijacked you of your ability to know and trust in your own innate wisdom. So what happens when we soften into our truest selves, when we allow ourselves, instead of just going back into a place of rushing or going back into busyness or filling up our calendars with more things to do, or filling up our minds with more information, more Netflix, more videos that we're watching, more stuff, we actually do the opposite. We ease and we create more space and we listen. And what I've seen with my students through practicing meditation, just through 60 seconds that they're starting off with at a time, they're teaching their minds how to soften and how to listen. Because here's the thing, we have this ego that I call our fickle friend, and it truly is our friend. It's here to support us in so many ways. If I didn't have an ego, I wouldn't be able to show up and have this conversation with you right now. So our ego supports us in many ways, but the ego is a very fickle friend, because so much of what it does is to protect us for self-preservation. We're living in survival. So it's keeping us safe. It's keeping us in what's familiar. So if your entire life you've been operating from a place of achievement focused and goal focused and busy focused and hustle focused and grinding focused and masculine energy focus, and this is for men or women, it can be really challenging to then teach the mind to experience what this silence or this calmness that you might experience when you have meditation practice, or when you're just doing something that you really love, where all of that time and space, it all just disappears. If you're listening to this and you don't really have an experience with meditation, to simplify what meditation is, it's just a practice of understanding yourself. And when you love something, think about the last time that you did something that you really, really love, that you found yourself just getting lost in that. When you love something, you find yourself in it, don't you? And so the practice of meditation helps you to do that same thing. And yet, so many of us are afraid of those so many people, I can't tell you how many people that I connect with that say, I just want some more time to myself. But then they do the opposite and they fill up their calendar with more things. Or people that say, I just want to be more connected to myself. And then they spend their time doing something that's completely opposite of connecting to themselves. It's because it's so unfamiliar. And when it's so unfamiliar, the mind, the ego, does this almost like alert, dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And so instead of allowing ourselves to soften into it, we actually stay hijacked in this. Almost feels like a roller coaster. Almost feels like you're a hamster inside of a wheel that just keeps revolving and turning. Or it almost feels like you're walking through these set of revolving doors and you don't see a way out. Or it feels like you're on a treadmill and you don't even know where the button is to turn it off. It just keeps going. You don't know how to stop it. But when you teach the mind how to actually slow down through really gentle meditation practice, or 60 seconds a day, what ends up happening is you start to nurture the mind to have a completely different experience. So the mind that was once racing and staying occupied and busy all the time is now resetting itself in a place where its new nature is peace. Its new nature is bliss. Its new nature is joy. And when I say new, it's not even new. It's all been within you all along. But because of our patternings of holding on to this identity that we know, right? Your ego is many things. It's the I maker. It's the thing that you identify with. And so many of us, we identify with our identity. This is who I am. This is what my dad knows me as. This is what my fiance or my husband knows me as. This is what the world knows me as. And we attach ourselves to that version of who we are. And when we do that, we also lose ourselves in it too. So as you begin to soften and not fight it, not resist it, right? As you begin to soften, as you begin to teach the mind, it's okay to have this moment of silence to yourself. It's okay to have this experience with yourself. It's okay to not do the things that keep you busy. Instead, do the things that you love, that feed your soul. It's okay to choose that instead. Then slowly, 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 over time, you'll open your eyes and it's almost like you're looking at the world through completely different lenses. And everything around you might be the same, right? You might be living in the same house. You might be in the same relationships. You might have the same friends. But your perspective and your approach to it is completely different. And that's a journey of softening into your truest self. It's looking at your life by giving yourself the space that's necessary, actually giving yourself the space that's necessary in order to ease into it a little bit more, so you can take that silence or you can take that time for yourself and really ask yourself, is this even what I want? Is this really important to me? Or did I make it important to me because that's what I thought it had to be? So as we're living in this very interesting time right now, how can we begin to view what's happening in the world as more opportunities for us to go inward, as more opportunities for us to spend time with ourselves, to understand ourselves, to understand our true nature? It's almost like, you see this lamp over there? I'm gonna see, which way is it? This way? This way, okay. You see this lamp over there? You see the lampshade that's on there? So if you put 100 lampshades on top of that lamp and you turn the light on, you might not see the light. That's the journey of softening into your truest self. It's taking off each one of those lampshades that's hiding your light. And as you begin to take off all of that external programming of what no longer is you, of shedding your old identities, of shedding your old ways of being, of hurrying, of rushing, of staying busy, of being so achievement focused, of turning to a human doing and not a human being, as you begin to take all of that off, what you're left with is your own light. And it's not so scary after all. And that journey looks completely different for each and every person. So today, this moment, can you find a moment, just a moment, to soften into your truest self a little bit more, to just tell yourself that it's okay to not always be part of the programming of society or our external conditioning, and to just allow, so that we can give that space and that presence to ourselves and just see what happens. It's one grand adventure, and you might just open your eyes and you might just have a completely different perspective on your life and your reality. And you might be in the same exact situation, but your approach, your perspective had completely shifted. And you might feel that. And then you might realize that every moment in itself is this amazing, adventurous gift, and it's so full of love. It's so full of light, and it's so full of all that you're meant to be, which cannot be hindered, which cannot be boxed, which sometimes it's hard to even explain, but that's you. So what does that journey look like for you? And can you surrender into it a little bit more? And if you give yourself permission to do this tiny little thing for yourself today, you might just find out, inch by inch, moment by moment, who you truly are. I'm sending you all my love, and I will see you in the very next video.